Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Kenichi, and I'm really excited tonight because you want to talk about legends in the business. They don't get any better than tonight's guest. She has over 70 years of credits to her resume, and she's going to talk to us about something really cool tonight. She's big with the Thalians program that's been launched for a long time now. It is my honor to introduce to you the legendary Ruta Lee. And Ruta, thank you for coming
Wow.
on today. It's a real honor.
Oh, you make me sound like I'm already dead, but I'm close enough. Thank you. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. And I have to tell you something. You have solved a problem for me or created one. I'm not sure. I've just spent a month in Italy. Now, your name clearly denotes that somewhere down the long line, there was some Italian in the woodpile.
Oh, I'm Italian.
And
Yes.
the name Canici, I
Yes.
never could figure out when I was there when the C is an A C, when it's a K sound, when it's CC or CH. Solve that problem for me.
Well, I could tell you this. Anybody that looks at my last name, they think it's Kanisi, they think it's Kaneki. They never think it's Kanichi because if you look at it, it's two N's, one C. So
One
it's
C.
yeah, it's definitely confusing for a lot of people. And when people get it right, I applaud them because I don't think I would get it right if I didn't know it was my last
Well,
name.
honey, clearly you're not solving it for me. I'm going back to Italy and get it solved. But how
Well, I
nice
hope
to
you,
be with you. Thank
yeah,
you for sharing your audience with me. I'm so happy to be here.
yeah, no problem at all. And Ruda, you kind of came onto the scene in TV when TV was really taking off.
Uh-huh.
It was radio for a long time, which people loved, but really, when you got your break on the George Burns and Gracie Allen show, I mean, that's really in the early days of when TV had kind of become big. So just talk about what that time was like when TV was making a splash.
Well, it was a great time for me. It, of course, was putting a lot of business out of business. Like nightclubs were failing because they weren't getting the audiences. Everybody was so dazzled to stay home and watch their television set. Uh, Burns and Allen, which is a television name that very few people will remember anymore. Yeah, I mean, if you're ancient like I am, I'm now 90, as you know. Yeah, I remember Burns and Allen very well because I got to guest on their show. And the nice part, Mike, was that they didn't treat me like a little kid. I was all of 16, I think, when I did the show.
Yeah.
They invited me to their Swazi cocktail parties on Maple Drive in their big house around the pool. And, I would spend a week trying to figure out what I'm going to wear to something like this. But they were the sweetest, nicest people. And when I got very involved with the Thalians, which I hope we will talk about,
Yep.
my invitations used to go out to George Burns because Gracie was gone by then, and he would come every year and sit at my table, and I was so thrilled and so honored that these huge important names that came from vaudeville into movies, into television, that this marvelous man was sitting with me. Now, if I'd played my cards right, I probably could have wound up the next Mrs. Burns, but obviously I didn't. But he was a dear, sweet man to me.
Yeah, and I mean to get like your first start on, a popular series like that because again, everything was new, but this was one of I mean, especially for CBS, I would say it was their most popular show. You get
I
that
think so.
opportunity. Yeah, you get that opportunity. I mean, you're a kid back then, but I'm sure as time went on, you really look back and you're like, wow, I got to they thought a lot about me then as an actress that they put me on their show.
It it never failed to ring and tug at my heart to know that. Of course, I did not become great friends with the beautiful Mrs. Burns because she died shortly after this. But Mr. Burns lived to be what, 100 and something or other. I can't remember quite what.
Definitely 100. I know that. Yeah.
The Bible promises us 120 years, and I want every freaking one of those. But with a little bit of sense still working for me.
Yeah, Ruta, you talk about 100 years and stuff, and you were talking about George Burns, and I thought of another actor who I was a big fan of, and he lived to be 106. He died about 4 years ago, and that was Norman Lloyd. Did you have any interaction with Norman at all over your career?
Very, very little,
Yeah,
unfortunately. Yes, we did cross paths, but I didn't ever really get to work with him, and I'm sorry to say that I didn't. But I got to work with a lot of people that lasted a little longer than 55. I look back at newspaper reports now where 40, 50 was considered already getting
yeah.
older. I consider 90, which is what I am, still very young. I
Well,
just
I'll tell you what.
celebrated my 90th birthday, Michael. I thought the best way to face a birthday, I don't like birthdays. Well, I mean, I don't like dying either, but birthdays, I just sort of ignore. And I thought the best way to work through my 90th birthday is to do a show. So I did my show with wonderful guest stars like Joanne Woodward and Jillian and well, just fabulous people came in to help me out and to celebrate my 90th birthday in a theater. And we did a big show and raised a lot of money for the Thalians. And so I figure God will smile on that whole effort and give me a lot more years that I can keep raising money for a good charity.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, you don't look like you're slowing down at all. I mean, you're still working. You look great. And, I mentioned your first break, obviously, the George Burns and Gracie Allen show, but another show that was very popular and you got to get a guest spot on was the Roy Rogers show. So talk about that a little bit because that had to be a thrill as well.
Do you know that I can't remember it, Michael? Now, maybe that's part of getting older. I don't remember doing that show. I do know that I spent time with them. It must have been on the show, but I can't remember the plot or what I did or anything else. And a lot of
Right.
shows I do remember all of that stuff. But maybe I was just so dazzled to be with a big cowboy star that I would go to see in the movies when I could. I grew up in Montreal, Canada. And I don't know if you know this, but at that time, you had to be 16 years old to go to the movies. There had been a big fire, and a lot of children were trampled and killed in the melee of getting out. And so children were not allowed to the movies. They'd make an exception if it was a Disney film and it was, something like Bambi or whatever. Uh, and every once in a while. But so I didn't get to see any of those great movies that were part of the serials that most American kids grew up with. So when I got to California and got to meet and greet the fabulous Roy Rogers and his beautiful wife, what a thrill. So maybe I don't remember because I was too excited to be on there. And I probably had all of 3 lines, but whatever it was, it helped me get my union card, which was necessary if you're going to work in show business in Hollywood.
Right. Well, I can tell you one thing I know you definitely remember, and it was a tremendous musical, and that was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
My
Mm,
first
yeah.
movie job.
Yeah. So talk about that because that to this day, I mean, when that comes on, you never get tired of watching it. It's just a great, great
Doesn't
film.
it hold up just beautifully? And the music is
Yeah.
good, and the action is so good. And some of the best dancers in America were in that film. And when I got the call from my agent, it was the first movie I went out on. My mother went with me, and I went into the casting office and got into my little leotard to wear for the audition. My mother went across the street from the casting office to the church, and she got on her knees and lit a lot of candles and prayed very hard. I went in and danced my little fanny off, doing some ballet, doing a little jazz. And then our choreographer, Michael Kidd, said, "Can you do something a little folksy?" Well, I sure knew how to polka. I'm of Lithuanian descent, and if there's one thing we know how, it's to do a good, strong polka. So I polka'd my ass off, and there we were. And I'm not sure whether it was my dancing or my mother's praying, but I got the job. And I'd be in the bar every morning. When I say bar, I don't mean that bar, I mean the ballet bar that we all did every morning to warm up. I would look around and say, I'm dancing with somebody from the New York Ballet Company. I'm dancing with one of the best film dancers in the world. I just can't believe that I'm doing this. How did I get here? Maybe the prayers had something to do with it.
Yeah, and I mean, what a film it was. And I mean, you got to, play a part like that, and that always opens the doors for more things. And
Sure does.
Ruta, I also think that, you know, being able to work with the Rat Pack had to be something that was special for you. I
Oh,
think you did that in 61 or 62. And I think it was Sergeant's 3, if I remember correctly.
you sure
And
do.
yeah, I mean, just talk about that experience, because I mean, these are Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Joey Bishop, Sammy Davis, Peter Lawford. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Michael, I have to give you the prelude to that, how I got the job in the first place.
Yeah.
As I talked about a little earlier, nightclubs were going out of business because everybody was watching television and not going to see the stars in the nightclubs. And Frank Sinatra said to the lady that owned the Macombo, I'll come in and play for a week. Dean will come in and play for a week. Sammy will play. Well, let's see if we can't get some business going. And I had been invited by a very nice man who invited like about 10 or 15 people to the opening of Frank Sinatra at the Macombo. Now, I had never seen Frank Sinatra, dear. I was too young to see him in his heyday at the Paramount in New York. Now, if you have ever seen Frank Sinatra live, nobody comes close to him. He is absolutely enchanting and mesmerizing. And I sat there, and he was working on a tiny little dais that had been put out in front of the stage, because nightclub stages are very small. His orchestra filled it. And I was captivated. I stared up at him, I think my mouth hanging open the whole time. A note came to the host of our table saying, would I bring Miss Lee around? Would he bring Miss Lee around to meet him? That he would like to meet me. So my host took me around, and the gentleman introduced himself. And he said, hello, my name is Arthur Hornblow Jr., and I am producing a film called Witness for the Prosecution. And would you come in and meet Billy Wilder, who is directing? And I said, is tomorrow too soon? And he said, fine, come on in. I went in, I posed for pictures. Marlene Dietrich took one look at the film, and she said, Dick Nine, forget it. She's blonde like me. I became a brunette overnight. I got the job. I got Witness for the Prosecution, thanks to Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
To fade out, fade in, it's like a year later, 2 years later. What does Frank like to do but have a big Italian dinner, as you well know, and invite a lot of friends over and run a new movie? What movie do they run that night? Witness for the Prosecution. And he says to Howard Koch, his partner in the company that they formed, he said, I've been watching this Ruta Lee chick on television. And what do you think? We put her in one of our upcoming films. And I had worked for Howard many times. And he said, oh, Lord, yes, that would be great. She's one of my favorites. So that's how I got to be the leading lady to Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, Peter Lawford, Joey Bishop, the Crosby Boys, and the whole Rat Pack. And he never knew that my getting the job in his company was thanks to him getting the job where I was the love interest to Tyrone Power. Not all bad. Great Hollywood story.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, I think about the things that you were able to do between the 50s and 60s. And I mean, another popular drama series was The Lineup, and I think you were in about 6 or 7 episodes of that. And then,
So
of
many.
course, yeah, and then of course, I'll never forget this. I believe you were Connie Cooper, who played the murderer in one of the Perry Mason episodes, and I think you were in several of those. But I remember the Connie Cooper one where you were the murderer, so you got to play a villain, which probably was fun as well.
Oh, the bad girls are always more fun to play. The girls with the heart of gold and the teeth to match. The hookers, the ladies of the evening are always the most fun. And playing a murderess was really fun. And getting to break down on camera and cry and scream and carry on. I loved the lady who produced that show. And of course, I loved him. Perry
Raymond.
Mason
Yeah, Raymond.
was
Yeah.
just so fabulous. A wild, wild, wonderful sense of humor. And Barbara Hale had a great sense of humor as well. But the lady who produced was a great star in the early 30s and into the 40s. And to think that she gave up being a star to become a producer, boy, she was smart. She really was fabulous. And she let me play all sorts of roles. I went back lots of times. And I was very grateful to her because that was on the job training. And boy, did I love it. It was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I got to believe this, Ruta. Anytime you get the opportunity to do some work with Lucille Ball, that has to be fun. And you were on the Lucy show for a few episodes as well. So getting to work with her, because let's face it, in the 50s, I think she was, if there was a lead-in female lady, she was right there. She was phenomenal. So just talk about that a little bit.
She was not only a phenomenal performer, she was a phenomenally good lady. I asked her to be our guest star, our honoree for the Thalians, and she said yes. I asked her to not co-host, but to co-chair an event for the City of Hope, Founders for Diabetic Research. She said yes. Whenever I asked her for something, she did it. Now, she was a very hard-working lady. It looks so easy when she's making faces and pulling jokes on herself and fabulous. She worked very hard. She brooked no foolishness on the set. She really worked hard and everybody else worked hard. And I think one of the reasons I worked for her a lot and she liked me and we got to be very good friends was that I came in prepared. I didn't stammer around. I knew my lines. I knew. And working on her set was difficult because, ladies and gentlemen who are listening to you, it was a 4-camera show, which meant 4 cameras were going at the same time, covering different people, which was great. There was a close-up on me. There was a medium shot on me. 2 cameras, a close-up on Lucy and a medium shot on Lucy. Then they would do the full shot of everybody. And you couldn't step forward off your marks. You had to choreograph this like a ballet. If you went too far, your nose was in somebody else's shot, or your hair was falling into somebody else's shot. It was a fascinating way. So it was hard work, but boy, it paid off. And all of this was done in front of an audience, which I loved. Everybody that is in comedy loved hearing the laughter. That's the best part of being in show business, is getting the response from an audience, the laughter, the tears, the sighs, and getting a check at the end of the week is really nice.
No doubt about it. And Ruta, also, I think this was something that you enjoyed a lot because it kind of gave you, in a lot of ways, a day off, if in some sense. And that's when you got to be on game shows. And I think of Hollywood Squares, which was one of my favorite game shows. And you got to be a part of that several episodes. And that's got to be fun when you're just answering questions and helping, the person the guests that they have on. So talk about being on the game shows. That had to be fun as well.
I loved it. Mary Markham Damsker and her husband, Gary Damsker, were very good friends, and I did a lot of game shows for Mary. She booked the celebrity talent for game shows, talk shows, anything like that, musical party shows. And she used me a lot. And I guess she used me because I've always had high energy, and that's appealing to the hosts and the sponsors of the show. Uh, Hollywood Squares was wonderful.
Yeah.
They never, people have asked, were you given the answers to give? No, you never knew. You were given things. If you went totally blank, try saying something or other like this, but you didn't know where you could say that.
Right.
So it was, they prepared you in case you just went up like smoke. But we had to come up with our own answers. It was a wonderful show. And of course, we'd do the first three, and then we'd break for dinner, and dinner would always have wine served or something. The last two shows of any game show, talk show, Hollywood Squares, PDQ, any password, anything, the last two shows were always more brilliant. Why? Because we'd all sipped a little wine at the last two dinners. Made it better, honey.
Right. And Ruta, also, people probably don't realize this, but you've done voiceover work and you've done your voice for the Flintstones, for the Smurfs, things like that. And that's got to be fun too, when you don't have to worry about makeup, you don't have to worry about wardrobe. You just go in the studio and you just lend your voice for a cartoon. That's got to be fun too.
Oh, it is such fun. And I did a whole series for Hanna-Barbera that was called The Frankenstones. And it was such fun to go in and sit on a stool, make some funny sounds. Of course, I have a deep voice, as you know. And so they loved it for Hydia, who was Frankenstone's wife. And our daughter was Atrocia. And it was such fun to make noises, and to get paid for that was just unbelievable. I really should be doing more voiceover stuff because it's so great. The cartoons were fun. I did a bunch of them. I usually got to play cackling old witches, with my deep voice. But gosh, I love doing them. You would like doing them.
Yeah, I'm sure. And one show that was very popular in the 90s, Ruta, and you played an important character in that one episode you did, was Roseanne. And what an episode it was. And it, at that time, they, they were kind of opening new doors to new things and things like that. So the character that you got to play, Estelle Parsons, she plays an important part.
Called a lipstick lesbian.
Yeah. So talk about getting to play on that show, because listen, I haven't always agreed with everything Roseanne Barr does, but when she's on TV, she's very good.
I was expecting to dislike her terribly, because politically we're altogether different, and she does say some pretty wild things. Of course, she's a comedian. Not everybody laughs at what she says, unfortunately, but she turned out to be one of the nicest, most generous people, and altogether different from what I expected. She worked very hard. She also wrote and was involved, and she was so generous. In her compliments, she said, Ruta Lee is guest starring with us this week, and I've got to tell you, she is what's making the show wonderful. Wow. Coming from Roseanne Barr, that was really something. Now, I don't know. I was just in Hawaii, and as I recall, Roseanne had a plantation in Hawaii. Does she still? Do you know? I hope she does, because Kauai is one of the prettiest places I've ever been.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. She hasn't been in the public eye since the comments she made a few years back, which, as you know, were very inappropriate. But I don't know too much about her, but I do know that when she was on that camera, she was as good as anyone. And that series was well written. I mean, they tackled a lot of something that I don't think exists in comedy shows anymore, because it's just all comedy now, where comedy shows had comedy, but they also had very serious moments, which
Uh-huh.
Roseanne did a lot, you know?
Well, I am sorry that she used her mouth unwisely.
Yeah.
You have to be. People are so sensitive, and you have to be so careful of what you say and what you do. I try never to let politics interfere with anything because that just gets everybody into trouble. But
It really does. Yeah.
what I will say is, I think all of us who live in any free country, be it Canada, be it the United States, be it England, be it France, be it anywhere where you can be free to say whatever you choose, do it wisely. But I'm so grateful and thank you, God. And may God continue to bless all of us who can be pretty stupid at times.
Yeah, exactly. One quick thing, Ruta, I was a big fan of the film Steel Magnolias, and you got to do the theater musical of that, and you got to play Clary, which was a funny character on the movie. Talk about
Wonderful.
doing that because that had to be fun for you as well.
Fun, but boy, hard work.
Yeah.
You had to, it was a lovely mix of comedy and tragedy. And of course, they're so close. The line is so fine between them. But a comedy like that that has such wonderful, smart ass lines, you just appreciate so very, very much. I loved it. I played it several places, but one of my most fun places to play is Casa Manana in Fort
Yeah.
Worth, Texas, and I've done a lot of shows there. And well, it's such a well written show,
Yes.
and each character is so clearly defined that you would have a hard time screwing up that show. Let's put it that way. It's wonderful. And I look forward to playing it again. I can still do that. There are not too many roles I can play anymore. The young leading lady roles are long gone for me. And the average leads are very young and not old. And I'm 90, but I still keep pretending that I'm 45.
I'll tell you what, you definitely act like it for sure.
Oh, thank
And
you.
Ruta, this one woman show that you've been doing has been phenomenal. And we talked about this a little bit, the Thalians tribute to Neil Sedka. Am I pronouncing his name right? Yeah.
Sadaka.
Yeah. So talk about that because I mean, people forget just how talented he was,
Oh,
and
Neil's,
you've done a great job, like making sure that uh, he's getting the proper tribute. So talk about that because this is a great project, and I think this is all going to go down in December, correct?
it is December 6th, and
Correct.
anybody out there who is in this part of the world, come on over. We're going to be at the Bel Air Country Club, which is gorgeous. And we don't do the great big stage events anymore because they're too expensive. We will eventually. But we have Neil Sedaka this year. Now, what a musician he is. He's written so many beautiful songs, so many things that the kids know. As an old lady, even I know. But he is such a lovely man, and he is going to be our guest star. He's
Yeah.
going to, I'm sure, play a couple of his very popular tunes. And darling Anne Gillian, who is a Lithuanian like I am, we're both of Lithuanian descent, is going to perform, and she's wonderful. So we are planning a great Christmas party. It's the kickoff for the Christmas season, and whether you're Jewish and we celebrate the holiday slightly differently than the Catholics and the Christians do, so what? It's the holidays. We all belong to the same God, call him what you like. And I'm so pleased that Neil is going to be there. And if you have any extra money, whether it's $5, whether it's 500 or $500,000 to give to us Thalians, we support the returning veterans, those beautiful young people that are willing to put their lives on the line any hellhole in the world we send them to. And yet they come home and sometimes they're forgotten when it comes to mental health or being cared for by all of us in America. Well, we joined up with Cedars-Sinai, which we had originally, and we left Cedars-Sinai with our star and our building still intact, but we have joined UCLA and Operation Mend. Operation Mend heals the broken and fractured bodies of these poor, beautiful people that have been injured. We work on the mind and spirit of these gorgeous veterans. And it is so wonderful to think that a group of young actors, way back when, 70 years ago, got tired of being called hard drinking, sex minded, pot smoking asses who had nothing to contribute, and decided that they would send out, I'm forgetting names now, names are disappearing from me today. Darling, good heavens. Oh, well, I'll think of it in a minute. These two beautiful actresses with great big huge bosoms out to, Mamie Van Dorn was one of them, and Jane Mansfield was the other one. Sent them out to find a good charity to give our money to, because someone decided, look, we get together and have a couple of drinks and hang around the piano and sing songs and dance. Why don't we put something together and arrange to sell tickets? And we raised the first dollars for the Thalian Community Mental Health Center. And the doctor that we supported at the time found children who were like a rotting apple in a barrel. And he said, if they're not fixed, the whole neighborhood goes. So we started for emotionally disturbed children and went on building the first clinic that we had for emotionally disturbed children through pediatric people. And wow, am I ever proud of our group and what they did.
Yeah, and it's really a great cause. And what was interesting to me is I never realized Neil had over 60 years of performing. I mean, he's been phenomenal, but I didn't even realize it's been 60 years. And I mean, what a credit, because it's one thing to be an actor, but when you're a singer, you don't know how your voice is going to respond as you get older. And he has really never missed a beat. I mean, he has kind of sounded the same as he did when he was 20 something. And that's really remarkable. And I think it's great that you've really made it a point to honor him. I think that's a great job by you.
I'm glad you brought him up, because he was in the audience at my birthday show at the El Portal Theater, a nice big theater. And last minute, I just pointed to him and said, you're sitting here. There's a piano here. The pianist will move over. Come on up, Neil. Come on up. And son of a gun, he did. He came up and went to the piano and sang some songs and just dazzled all of us. And he's going to dazzle all of us again on December the 6th at the Bel Air Country Club. And you can go to the Thalians, Thalians, Thalians. She was a Greek goddess and the goddess of comedy. And thethalians.org, not .com, but .org. And you'll find out all about us, how to buy a ticket, and please come and join us.
And let me ask you, Ruta, when did the Thalians really get going? Like, when did that all come about? I know you have a lot to do with it, but I mean, when did it originate?
It originated in 1955.
Right.
And a group of young people in the business and allied fields, whether it was costuming or makeup or lawyering or agenting or whatever, joined in the group. And how wonderful to have had lovely people as stars come in and front as president, so on and so forth. I took over from Debbie Reynolds, who was one of the founding members, and then came in as president a little later. I came in as president. She became chairman of the board. There were roles that we switched for the following 70 years. And it's so good to think that we do very good work in the process of having a very fun time together. And we've had everybody from Frank Sinatra through Whoopi Goldberg, through Lucille Ball, through Bob Hope and Bing Crosby as our honorees. And some of the names now are forgotten by the young people anymore, but we're still trying to keep the names that were vital to our industry very much in focus.
Right, and I think it's a wonderful cause, and I'm glad you brought up Bob Hope because what always impressed me the most about him,
Excuse me,
never
I'll
mind,
answer this. I'll call you back in about 10 minutes.
um,
I have no idea
I,
who it was.
um, obviously a talented comedian, brilliant, but what always impressed me the most about him is he traveled all over the place to honor the troops, to perform for them because he knew the sacrifices they were making. And he would even go on small airplanes. I mean, we don't have the high-tech airplanes back then that we do now. And he took it upon himself. I think he traveled at one point like 80,000 miles, they said, throughout his career honoring these troops. And I always found that to be special about him. And that's what really that I love about the different people that I get to interview and talk to them is people sometimes give entertainers in Hollywood a bad name and think they're spoiled and stuck up and stuff. And so many of them are human beings who just they have a job they do, and then after that they do all this extra stuff to give back. And I really find that special. And what you do is just as remarkable. And I really do applaud you for that.
Thank you very much for even pointing a finger at that. It's so nice to be recognized, not because you're adorable on the screen, but because you really put in hard time and effort. I traveled with Bob a lot doing shows here and there, and it's amazing how time consuming, how energy consuming, how lifeblood consuming working all of this and coming off looking rosy and adorable. And a lot of our guest stars that work for the Thalians worked for Bob Hope doing the Christmas shows. And boy, I did a lot of them too. I did a lot of them, not just with Bob Hope, but with Johnny Grant, who is so very much involved and covered 8 areas that Bob couldn't get to and took wonderful stars with him. God, it was just so exciting and so wonderful, but time consuming. And we would go on MATS, Military Air Transport Service planes, and they would take out seats on one side of the plane and put litters in, bunks in, that we could sleep in because we had a show to do the next place. And for the men, it wasn't quite as hard. But for the girls, it was tough. You had to find a place to do your makeup. You find a place to wash your hair and put the curlers in, some place that had electricity that was like yours that you could use the hot rollers for. Doing a show, transporting like that was not easy. And so I love that you noticed it and thanked us for it. Thank you very much, Mike.
Well, thank you for what you do and what so many of the people that are involved in this do, because it's a great cause. And just tell me, Ruta, you touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the things planned for that night when, obviously Neil's going to be there, but it sounds like it's going to be something very special and something that people won't want to miss.
No, you don't want to miss because, first of all, we have lots of celebrities coming and you get to rub shoulders with them at the cocktail hour, which precedes, the event. And then, of course, a fabulous dinner, as only the Bel Air Country Club can do, salad and a full meal, and dancing. It's a dinner dance. And then, of course, there'll be this wonderful entertainment. And the really good part is that we invite every year some of those beautiful people who have had their arm blown off or their face blown off or something, a leg gone or whatever. Gorgeous, wonderful people to come and enjoy the evening. And sometimes we'll get one of them to speak and tell us about what supporting Operation Mend and the Thalians really means to them. And wow, just thinking about it brings tears to my eyes, because it means so much to these poor people who have done so much for us. And yet what can we do to help them except bring them back to being healthy as we can?
Right. It really is something that's very moving to see and remarkable, like I said. And I think what you are doing is just great. And it really is refreshing because, like I said, you've been in this business, like I said, for over 70 years. And yet, with all of it, you're still giving back. You haven't just said, okay, I did everything I set out to do in my career. I'm going to go off in the sunset. You've continued to work and you've continued to make an impact. And that's what's really remarkable about you, Ruta, is you're an impactful person. And as talented as you are as an actress, I think as a humanitarian, you're even better at, because what you do is really special.
Thank you so much. You know, I write about it a great deal in my book, which is, by the way, called Consider Your Ass Kissed. And I mean that sincerely, whether you give me $5, 500, or 500,000 for the Thalians. Consider your ass kissed. And I talk about it because I talk about the fact that you don't have to have a big checkbook to do something good for your fellow man. You can just smile to somebody and maybe lighten their load for the day. My husband used to say, Ruta, you introduce people on the elevator. God forbid they should have a bad ride. You know, it's so easy to put a little bit of lightness, a little bit of joy into someone's heart by just commenting on how cute their hair looks or they are, or just make them smile for a minute. And you know, that's what I want on my tombstone, Michael. I want somebody to put there, she brought a smile to every face that crossed her path, whether it was two-legged or four-legged.
Well, Ruta, I really do appreciate everything you do. Great job with this, great project that you're doing. And congratulations on what has been, like I said, a legendary Hall of Fame career.
Thank you.
And I really thank you for giving me a few minutes today, because it was a real honor for me.
So happy, Michael. And I look forward to us sitting down and discussing when the C's are a K and when they're a ch in Italian.
Well, if anybody gets out of the mystery, you can.
Over several glasses of wine.
Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And folks, I'll just end with this. This remarkable human being has been in the business, like I said, since the early 1950s, and she has never missed a beat. She gives you her very best. But what's more impressive than anything else is the thing she does for people in her community throughout the world, always making a difference. And that's what's always going to stand out to me the most about Ruta Lee is when we look back on her career, the biggest thing I will look at is she always made a difference. And that speaks volumes about her. For In the Spotlight, I'm Mike Kenichi. She's Ruta Lee saying good night, everyone.